Hi there, my name is Evan and I am Clark Kent's primary trainer. So we are going to be probably have to keep our in-person drop-off meeting a little short since we had to reschedule because we have other appointments. But I wanted to make sure you got a full, detailed go-home lesson. So I'm recording this here for you, so it's up on YouTube and you can watch it whenever you need to, as often as you need to give you the basic instructions on what it is that Clark Kent has learned and how to get the most out of his training. So first off, we'll talk about what he has learned. He's learned several commands, which include yes, nope, come, let's go, sit, down, heel, and okay. Really quick, what those each mean. Yes is basically a positive reinforcer. It has come to be associated with doing a very good job. And so if you give the dog a treat after he does what you want to, the dog understands, oh, I get rewarded for doing the right thing. But maybe you don't have a treat on hand. You can always just tell him, yes, good boy, and give you a pet on the head or let him lick your hand or, run around and explore, whatever it is he wants to do, play with a toy. Yes just generally is associated with positive things. So if he does what you want him to do, you can say yes, or also just good or good boy. Those work as well. Nope is our punishment correction command. Basically, it's a cease and desist command. So when we tell the dog nope, not no, but nope, that's basically a stop doing what you're doing. Say that Clark Kent, is jumping up on somebody and playfully trying to mouth them, telling him nope in a nice stern voice, or if he's like rummaging through the trash, or maybe he tries to run after a squirrel or something, telling him nope will help him to stop doing that. Of course, if he doesn't stop the first time, you can say it again, and also you can combine it with physical correction, like a pop on the leash with the prong collar, or a buzz on the e-collar, things of that sort. There's also come, and that is you're asking the dog to come to you. So this is assuming that you are stationary and the dog is somewhere else and you want him to come to your location. So you say come and he comes to you and is awaiting your further instruction. Let's go is similar to come, but you are actively in motion and you're not wanting the dog to come to you for any particular reason. You just want him to keep up with you. So say you're going for a walk and he's on a loose leash or off leash, and he gets distracted sniffing at a bush and he starts to fall behind. Without stopping, you could just say, Clark Kent, let's go. And then he'll follow along with you. He has free rein when he's on a let's go command to walk around you, in front, behind, off to your sides, several feet in any direction. But generally it's, you want to make sure that he doesn't go too far ahead without him stopping to check back on you and where you're at, or lag too far behind where he fails again to look up and check in on you and catch up. Of course, if he gets too distracted, that's, what the let's go is for. There's also sit and down, which are both similar and they're self-explanatory. We did not teach Clark Kent the word stay. And that's because we taught him in implied stay. So that is basically we just teach him the word sit. He learns how to sit, and he just stays in a sit or in a down until told not to. Of course, right now he can stay in those positions for minutes on end. But to increase the amount of time that he's able to do that, you're going to have to continue to proof that ability, especially under different environments. But I'll discuss that later. But basically, the sit is implied with those. So if you want him to continue to stay where he's at, like maybe he disobediently gets up and tries to follow you, it's not going to do you any good to tell him to sit and then say stay, 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 because he doesn't know that. Just tell him, take him right back to where he was, tell him sit again, and go off. If he gets up again, you can use that word nope, because he did something he wasn't supposed to do, nope, and then lead him back to where he's supposed to be, sit, and carry on. But I'll go into more detail about how to correct Clark Kent later. Heel, of course, is also self-explanatory. We want the dog to heel alongside us, so they're not walking too far ahead or too far behind. Usually, within like a 6-inch radius of being in front, away from you. And that's basically what that is, just good walking etiquette out in public. And then okay is a command he's learned, which is his release command. So if you tell him to sit and he continues to sit for an extended duration of time, but now he doesn't have to sit anymore, you could just say, okay, or Clark Kent, okay. And that will basically tell him, all right, you don't have to sit anymore. You don't have to down anymore. You don't have to heel anymore. You're not on a let's go anymore. You don't have to come anymore. You can just say, okay. And that basically tells the dog, feel free to run off and just be a dog. Do your own thing. You're off the clock, so to speak. All right. Now you know the words to use, but do you know the right way to use them? When we hand dogs back over to their owners, we often find that they will sometimes have difficulty getting consistent results of their dogs obeying the commands. And when we go and see what the problem is for ourselves, we find that a good chunk of the problem is people are using the wrong word. Like maybe instead of saying come, they say the word here. Or instead of saying nope, they say no or nah or anything like that. It's like, all right, well, the dog didn't learn those words, so use the right words. It doesn't matter how often you say here. If he didn't learn the word here, he's not going to come here. But you also want to make sure that your pitch and tone are correct. You notice that when I gave examples of the pitch and tone, I had a higher and more enthusiastic tone of voice. Like sit, stay, here, down, stuff like that. Nope, yes. And there's a reason I do that. The dog, and this might come as a shock, doesn't know English or any language at all. Clark Kent understands body language pretty well, and he can read your emotions pretty well, but he doesn't understand semantical language. So how is it that they even learn commands in the first place? Basically by associating certain noises with certain actions and rewards or punishments. So basically, whenever I keep saying sit and it just hears me say sit, sit, sit over again, it doesn't know what that means until it just so happens to sit its butt on the ground and I instantly reward it. And he's like, oh, okay, so that word you keep saying must mean this thing, because every time you say it and I do it, I get rewarded. So I now know just to do it when I hear it. But though that's simple in principle, the fact is they are listening to very specific sounds and pitches of sound. So like right now I'm speaking in a casual, monotone, conversational voice, but I did not train Clark Kent with this tone of voice. I could, if Clark Kent were with me right now, and I said the words come and sit and yes and nope and all that, he wouldn't bat an eye, because all he's hearing is blah 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 blah. Because even though I'm saying the word come, I'm using it in the same monotone voice as all the other words before and after it. So it doesn't stand out. It just becomes part of the white background noise, or background white noise is what I meant. And so we don't want it just to be white noise. We want it to stand out in the foreground. So using a higher pitch, more enthusiastic, which I think most of us probably speak with our dogs in a more enthusiastic, higher pitched voice. We often use baby language when we talk to dogs. Who's a good boy? Yes, you are. Stuff like that. And they really respond well to that kind of enthusiasm. So make sure that you don't just use the right words, but you use correct pitch. So if you're telling Clark Kent to come and he's not, ask yourself, am I saying Clark Kent come like I would say that to a relative or a friend or, to anybody else? Or are you saying it like you're calling a dog over? Clark Kent, come! Stuff like that. There's a big difference. For the dog, it's a huge difference. All right, now I want to talk about how to correct the dog. And if he doesn't do what you want him to do, or if you need to continue, well, you will be needing to continue to proof his training. And I'll talk about that next. So correcting the dog, you basically are going to have three options, which is verbal correction, in this case, nope. You have the leash / collar, prong collar correction, and the e-collar correction. The nope is rather self-explanatory. Just make sure that for it to be effective, it's used in the proper context. Because remember, the dog only understands words or the sounds that words are through associations. So for instance, if Clark Kent pees in the house, you would, be like, no, nope, bad boy, nope, and then pull him away from the situation, and, you would discipline him as you would discipline him. But what if he doesn't pee in the house in front of you? What if he pees in the house while you're at the movies and you come back 3 hours later and there's a wet spot on the floor? Well, there's no point in correcting him then, because he's not going to understand why he's being corrected. He'll be very confused, and he'll feel, very punished, but he won't know why. So, and if you're giving out punishment, that's perfectly fine. Even stern, strong punishment is fine. But punishment without context borders on abuse. So we want to make sure that the dog actually is going to understand why it's receiving this correction. So unless you can correct the behavior in that moment, just let it go and try and catch it the next time. Because otherwise you might accidentally poison a command, where he thinks that when you say a command and he doesn't do it, and you just keep correcting him, that it's that word, that command is supposed to mean punishment, and he'll want to stop doing it because it's always bad for him. There's things like that. It can be very nuanced. Sometimes you feel like you're walking on eggshells with the dog. Like, what's the dog's attention on right now? If I say this or that, is he going to associate it with X, Y, or Z? I get it. It can be hard. But, I mean, having a dog is very much like raising a child. The other way to correct the dog is through physical correction. So this is a prong collar. If you don't have one of these, I highly, strongly urge you to buy one for Clark Kent. It will make your life so much easier having one of these. A lot of people that don't use them regularly are suspicious of them, because they're like, oh, it looks like you've got needles on the dog's neck. No, these are rounded, they're flat, they're not pointy. And obviously you don't want to have it so tight on the dog's neck that it would dig into the skin and hurt it, but you also don't want it so loose that it's hanging out like, bling, like it's a necklace or something. You want it to be, like that, where it's like you could move it around the neck, but it isn't loose. It's like you can't pull down on it and it doesn't sag. Because the idea is that you will hook up your leash. You'll hook up your leash here, and all you have to do is just give a little pop, and you see how much it contracts. This is not meant to choke the dog. Even though it's sometimes called a choke collar or a pinch collar, it's not meant to pinch or choke the dog. It's called a choke collar because it can adjust the size, and it's called a pinch collar because you pinch off, these little prongs to change the size, to add more or take them away, so that way it fits the dog properly. But the prong collar is really just to startle the dog, to just give it an attention, being like tapping someone's shoulder, or, basically saying, hey, come on, you're trying to pull them out of that tunnel vision. Now, again, this is true of anything you put around your dog, could hurt the dog if you do it too hard. So don't, be very forceful with it. Don't try and drag the dog across the yard with it or anything like that. Just a nice little pop is all you need, 95% of the time. This is so effective. Now, could you theoretically try and do that with a regular flat collar, or with a slip lead? Yeah, but the thing is that with the flat collar, you have to put more effort into pulling. You got to pull harder to get the same effect, but that effect is mostly going to be concentrated in the front of the throat, around the trachea, and that will literally choke the dog. And we don't want to strangle the poor animal. We're just trying to, pull it out of its concentration on whatever it's, hyper focused on. We're not trying to hurt the thing. And the flat collar will take you a step closer to hurting the dog than if it were a prong collar. The slip lead is a little better in that it is distributing the pressure around the neck like a prong collar does. The only thing is that because it's not prongs, again, you're going to have to put forth a little more effort in order to get that same effect of the dog being startled out of its tunnel vision. Because with the prongs, all the effort you put through, contracting the collar is going to be concentrated at the tip of these prongs. So instead of, having the whole force of one flat prong pressing against the neck, you're transferring all that kinetic energy to just that tiny little, fraction of a millimeter of a surface on top of that. So it takes a lot less effort to get a lot more bang for your buck, so to speak. So easier on you, friendlier for the dog. Of course, you also have the e-collar, which we got an e-collar around here. Now, e-collars, of course, are a fantastic way of being able to take care of your dog, especially if he's off-leash, or any kind of training at a distance. What I recommend with the e-collar is that you use it sparingly. And like I said, with the nope, you don't want to correct the dog if you aren't going to be good with your timing. Same with the e-collar. Now, the e-collar, of course, is not, I don't know if you use e-collar on the regular, but it's not meant to electrocute the poor thing. It's just meant to shock them. And shock is more like a buzz. It kind of reminds me of, like, you ever see those little children's toys, the little gag toys that children wear, of like a buzzer that they put on their hand, so when you shake someone's hand and it vibrates in their hand and they pull away because it shocks them. It doesn't really shock them. It's like a little zzz, it almost feels like you're holding a fly in your hand and you just feel its wings quickly batting up against your hand because it's trying to get out. It's that kind of a tingling sensation. Now, it can hurt at a higher level that you turn it up to, but there should be no need to. So I was using this brand, Mini Educator, the ET300, and this has a 1 out of 100 setting. And with Clark Kent, I was usually around 36 to 37, worked decently well with him. Like between 35 and 40 is what I was usually landing on for Clark Kent. But a different brand with different settings will have different strengths and values. So start at a low number and gradually crank it up until you see the dog physically responding to it. If he like jerks his head like this, that means he feels it, but it's probably not enough to actually get him to pull out his concentration. You want him to be kind of startled, like if someone walks up to you in a room and goes boo behind you, and you go, ah, that's the reaction you want. The same boo doesn't hurt you. It startles you, but it doesn't hurt you, and it gets your attention. So, you use it to a level that he's actually going to recognize that, oh, that was unpleasant, not painful, but unpleasant. If he makes a small yelp, that might be a little too strong. So try bringing it down a couple of notches. But yeah, it shouldn't be painful for him. Uncomfortable, sure, but not painful. Now, I want to stress about proofing this dog's abilities, because we taught Clark Kent all the things that he knows, and he does know them. We have video evidence. You've seen them online, right? But we need to proof that, and we need to refine that. He's not going to become a proficient, perfectly operating, obedient dog within, 4 weeks of training. You would not become a perfectly proficient, obedient human being with just, a month or even just 1 year of schooling, right? We spend our whole childhood going through school. Same with Clark Kent. You're going to have to spend these formidable years with him really cementing these things down. So you're really going to have to be on top of your game and be on the lookout for opportunities to proof what he's learned, whether, negative or positive reinforcement. You want to really make sure that you are going to be correcting him in a way that is effective, or that, that is in line with what he's been taught and what to respond to. So one thing that is going to be problematic, probably you'll notice right away, is there's a decent chance that when you get Clark Kent back home, he may be very disinclined to be obedient to you and may not pay any attention to the commands you say. And there's a few good reasons for that. That's one of the reasons why we tell people the worst time for us to teach you how to handle your dog is when the dog is going home after a month of being away, because that dog is not in the mindset of training, and you cannot just cut through that like a butter knife through through some thick fog, when the dog is just hyper focused on, oh, this is my master, oh, I'm so excited, oh, I'm back home, oh, it's all these things, all my instincts are firing off at a million miles an hour. So that's why we tell people, give Clark Kent like a week or two to acclimate to being back home, because he needs to not just let his energy levels calm down. He also needs to learn that all the things he was learning to obey with us is now applicable to you and your place. It's not like in English or like with a human being where you tell somebody, do not steal. And then they'd be like, okay, so they go to Walmart and they don't steal. But then they go into a Target and they look at you like, but I can steal from here, right? It's like, no, you just don't steal. That's just a no across the board. There is no case-by-case scenario. You just do not steal. Dogs are not like that. They can learn, do not, take this toy, or do not eat this other dog's food, or do not rummage through the trash. But will they do that at another location? Like, they may learn, don't rummage through the trash at your house, but what about when you take the dog to grandma's? Is he going to rummage through her trash? He might. Why? Because for dogs, obedience is all context dependent. So to really reinforce the dog that these commands are not case by case, but they are to be consistent throughout the time you have the dog, no matter where you're at or who it's with, whether it's you or a friend or relative that gives the dog's commands. You want to make sure that every time they're in a new environment that they have not yet experienced proofing, that is being subjected to obedience in that area, take that opportunity to do that. Excuse me. Because that is going to go a long way in helping Clark Kent to know, this is not just something that works when you're at Angier Canine Consultants. It's not something I just do when I'm at the park, when I'm at Home Depot. I'm to do this at home. I'm to do this, when I go for walks. I'm to do this when we go into Walmart or wherever you might take him, or on vacation. Just to give you a quick example, there was one dog we were working on that whenever we train our dogs, we train them outside. Often we train them at parks, and in public areas. And the dog did fantastic, and we gave it back home. And then weeks later, we got a call being like, hey, the dog just doesn't listen. And we went and, did a follow-up session. And they're like, yeah, we take the dog for a walk and it does fantastic. But as soon as it comes back in the house, it's like it forgets everything it learned. And it's because the dog learned context clues. We trained it outside in public areas, on grass, on pavement and sidewalks and, cement and that stuff. So when its little paws were on grass, it was in obedience mode. When it was walking around outside or in a public area, it was in obedience mode. But it never learned that it needed to carry over that obedience to its own home, where it lived and slept and ate. Because before coming to us, it spent its whole life at that house and never had to do any of that obedience there. So it's like the dog has to learn obedience all over again, because it does. But it's not learning from scratch in that it doesn't understand the commands or what's expected. It just has to learn to apply that to these situations, to these environments, to these contexts. That's going to require a lot of patience. A lot of patience for the dog, for you to be patient with the dog, and for you to be patient with yourself. And I want to stress this. Please be patient with yourself. You have always been a dog owner up to this point, but now you're going to be a dog handler. And those are two very different responsibilities. You're not just housing the dog and feeding it and, sticking it outside to use the bathroom every now and then. Now it's becoming a part of the family, and it needs to cooperate and be obedient to the rules of the house like a family member. And that's going to require effort, not just on it's the dog's primary person, but on the whole household. So anytime family members or friends or neighbors are over at the house, make sure that they are consistently treating the dog the way you are supposed to treat it. That way the dog understands, this is how I should react toward everybody, that I can't just jump up and mouth on everybody. It's not that, it's a case-by-case basis. Oh, I can't mouth this person, but I can mouth that person. It's like, no mouthing, period. But, and speaking of mouthing, Clark Kent, as you know, is a puppy, and he's still, we call that teething. And it's also the natural way that dogs play is by mouthing each other, right? So one, he's in the stage of life where he's going to naturally mouth. And two, his mouthing as he does is a very popular form of play, especially for his breed. So we cannot expect to ask him to stop wanting to mouth altogether. That's like asking a human being, stop talking. That's what we do. We are humans. We just talk all the time. So we want to make sure that we are going to, instead of trying to have an unrealistic expectation of, extinguishing a behavior like mouthing, we make it context dependent. For example, I had whenever he wanted to mouth, or we would play with him tug of war with a toy like this. And what we would do is if he wanted to mouth, we'd give him this and we'd let him mouth this. But if we were playing with him or wrestling or petting him with our hands, he tried to mouth at our arms, we gave him nope. And if necessary and able, we gave him a little pop on the prong collar and or a little buzz on the e-collar. And he would stop. Now he's to the point now with us, he'll, if he starts mouthing, because it's just like his second nature, he'll usually stop and think about it, be like, oh wait, I shouldn't, and he'll just knock it off, or we say nope and I'll usually do it. But we allow him to mouth when he's playing tug of war with a toy like this or something. So it's context where he can mouth, and that could even be a reward that he could be using for a good obedience. Yeah, does he come when you recall him? Then great, you can reward him with a chew toy and let him mouth with that. That's a fine way, because he's not biting in any aggressive way. It's a very playful biting. But of course, it can seem scary to somebody who isn't used to playing like that. If he just runs up and jumps up on them and starts mouthing them, and his mouth is on their arm, that can be scary for people that aren't accustomed to dealing with that. We did our very best to get him to learn to stop doing that and to learn the commands to stop doing it when told. But you're going to have to proof that. He learned to stop it with us, but what about with you? What about with your family? What about your friends? What about at your house? What about at your cousin's house? What about, when you are at your local park or your local store, right? So if you are wanting to work on these obedience training, do so at a place that is going to be very familiar. So your home is familiar with the dog. It just needs to get used to doing the obedience at the house. But eventually the house will just be like old hat. And there won't be really any distractions there, because there's really no sights or sounds or smells that it doesn't wake up to every day, right? So training at home is a great way to reinforce all the things he already knows, or to try and maybe teach him new things that you want to. But then when you want to increase the difficulty level to reinforce it, then take him somewhere else. Maybe if it's at the house, have somebody over that's not normally there, like a neighbor, and try and get him to be obedient under that increased difficulty of distraction. And then if he does well with that after several tries, take him outside to a park or to a hardware store or pet store or something like that, and just keep repeating those and gradually increase the difficulty level, forcing the dog to become more acquainted and with the general obedience under all conditions until it becomes second nature to him. And then finally, there was one last thought. What was it? I forget what it is that I was going to say next. Hopefully it wasn't too important. But yeah, so when you bring him home, for instance, is he going to be able to walk off leash in your backyard without running off? And you need to chase him down in your car? He might not, because I feel comfortable having him walk around in our facility or the park where we were training him at, or at our Home Depot, because he got used to that. But if I took him to your place, or if you took him to your place, I'm not even there, the person who trained him is not there, is he going to listen to you in a completely different environment? The first few times he might not, but he knows how to do this. So don't feel that he hasn't learned anything, or that this didn't go, no good came out of this. His training has not gone to waste. Take the training and apply it to those conditions. Have him be on a very long leash, like a 50-foot rope or something like that, and put it into a stake on the ground and let him have all that room, and then keep giving him more and more freedom and keep recalling him. And the more consistent he is with the recall, the more freedom you can give, until eventually he could theoretically be off leash under all sorts of environments, and you have the confidence that 95% of the time he's going to recall. And if he doesn't, you could just, give him a buzz and e-collar, or give him a, let's go command, and that he'll come and follow you. So that's basically the gist of everything I wanted to say, except the one point that I seem to have forgotten. But if I remember, I'll tell it to you when I drop off Clark Kent to you. But it was a pleasure working with Clark Kent. He's very enthusiastic. So again, please be patient with him. Keep an eye out. If you tell him a command and he doesn't do it right away, give him a few seconds. He might be slowly trying to obey you, but he might take his sweet time about it, and then he'll gradually get quicker. You don't want to punish him too soon when he's in the middle of attempting to fulfill your commands. Even if he fulfills it incorrectly, he attempted to fulfill it. And we don't want to be too quick to punish, otherwise we could poison the command by making him think that, we're punishing him for trying to do the good thing. So anyways, if you have any issues, or you're not sure you're doing something correctly, please reach out to us. You can text us, even take a video of you trying to work with Clark Kent if there's an issue, so we can hear and see the issue. Try and give us all the context, and we'd be happy to work with you to polish out any training and to help you become a better dog handler. That way you can become everything that Clark Kent needs, because he's already now learned it. It's just a matter of you becoming the dog trainer now. You are in charge, and proofing that over the rest of Clark Kent's life. Anyways, have a great rest of your day, and again, watch his videos as often as you need. And please, if you have any issues or questions or confusion on anything, reach out and we'd be happy to assist you. Take good care and see you soon. Bye-bye.